in for 2025 is taking a nervous system first approach when we are recovering from injury or we're trying to get a position or change a movement pattern. Use the brain, use the skin, use the perception systems, eyes, inner ear to change how the body is perceiving those inputs first. And then you will have a clear target for a mechanical intervention. Get clear on your targets before you get aggressive. That is in for 2025. Welcome back to the DOC WISHLOFF Podcast, first episode of 2025. We're going to call this season 2. So we are kicking the year off now. January, to me, is just a month that is not for new beginnings. It is a month for collecting your life, which is what I did, which is why we are doing our New Year's episode of 2025 in February. Lunar New Year. I'm a Lunar New Year girly. That is more where my vibe is at. On today's episode, I thought it'd be fun to just kick off this next season. We're coming into 2025. Do kind of little ins and outs of health, wellness, fitness moving into 2025. Again, I know that it is not the new year right now. I know that we're a month in, but I'm only starting today to accept that we're in 2025. So hopefully you're right alongside with me and we're going to talk through this ins and outs list. Obviously, this list is subjective. It's based on probably what I would like to see, what I hope for in the industry of health, wellness, injury recovery. But yeah, we're going to do an ins and outs. So the first thing that I have on my ins list is taking a full picture approach to healthcare. Now, this is a pretty broad one, but I like to believe that we are starting to see these overlaps of like how nutrition influences injuries and how mindset influences your recovery and your relationship to like food and injury and inflammation. I like to see this kind of interacting between these different schools of thoughts and starting to pull inspiration from all these different areas. Times of past, decades ago, everything was so categorized. And even now, if I see someone's social media page that says I am a knee expert or like a shoulder expert or a hormone expert, I know it is good for SEO, but ultimately that is not how anything recovers. So yes, we want to have, regions of the body that we have problems in that we're trying to find solutions to, but nothing is happening in isolation. So for me, it's ultimately a flag and a red flag when I see some sort of page that niches into a body part. I just question it because I think ultimately we should start to see this big full picture approach. And I think with all the information that exists online, I think it's becoming a lot easier for practitioners to start to see how other avenues of health and wellness are going to interact with the one that they are responsible for. So I am super up for improving your movement, doing hands-on care, all that jazz. But if we're trying to like categorize it into a body part, it just makes me feel a little like they're missing the big picture. So I hope to see a trend where we continue to see this layered approach to care, taking into account a lot of different things to solve specific injuries. That is in for 2025. Big picture, lots of layering. We have so much information. We have AI. Use it all. Layer it into those puzzles and get really lasting results, not temporary, short-sighted approaches to problems. Let's do an out. What is out for 2025? In my mind, I am seeing out with wild as high-intensity exercise. I know there was like this crazy surge of CrossFit into the world in 2010, maybe it started becoming really, really popular. We lived a decade of this ultra super high intensity exercise. And I think that we now are on the other side and potentially are considering the risk-benefit relationship. I'm not saying you shouldn't CrossFit. I love CrossFit. I think it's great. But I think CrossFit at maximum intensity all the time is ultimately problematic. And I think what we're seeing as a shift in the industry is this world of like Hydrox coming to be. And I think to me that signifies something that considers the risk reward of exercise. How much intensity, how much complexity can a human reasonably manage that's ultimately just trying to use this for fitness to make them live longer? When does that living longer kind of tip, right? If we're exercising too high intensity year round, always breaking down, is that ultimately a positive thing? Do we need to feel like you are redlining and on the brink of death every workout of the week to gain benefit? Probably not. And it might actually flip where the now risk is outweighing the benefit when we are doing that crazy high intensity stuff. So I like to think that the world is starting to see that and understand that you either need to have cycles through your year where you're doing high intensity stuff and then shifting your focus. A lot of the people that work with me through my programs or at the clinic do this in seasons, right? They're high intensity. We're in competitive season, pushing, training, and we're really focused on treatment at that point. And then there's another chapter of the year where we spend 4 to 8 weeks just pulling back, breaking down the basics, going through smaller, more incremental training with the intent of restructuring movement, patching up breakdowns, etc. So I would like to see in the general public an understanding that this wild, high intensity exercise, 100% of your training time year round is not sustainable. So I think there's starting to be a trend in seeing and understanding that. Obviously, I know people that are doing programming at CrossFit gyms are taking this into account. However, I don't know that people are always taking that into account, that there can't always just be more and more and more and more. There needs to be these cycles of pushing and recovering. When you play sports in your younger years, there's on season, there's off season. When you are just doing fitness as a human in the world, sometimes we forget that there should be an on season and an off season, and you need to structure one in and set some different goals for different quarters of the year. So whether that be doing a little bit lower intensity some days of the week, higher other days of the week, or cycling through different intensities through the year, I'd like to believe that we're shifting towards that. And so out for 2025, wildly intense exercise 100% of the time. All right, let's go back to another in. I'm seeing this in the rehab space is really taking a more neurological approach to pain and recovery and movement. There had been a lot of emphasis on self-massage, really aggressive end ranges of mobility, like thinking that physical force, mechanical force was driving adaptation in the system. And that is true. I'm not saying that's not true, but I think we perceived at a time that that was ultimately how change happened in the body. Grab a band, grab a lacrosse ball, and beat the crap out of your ankle until it moves. And that was kind of the thought that we had. Or if something hurts, roll it, massage it, and focus on just beating up that tissue until it succumbs to your will. Was kind of the thought on a lot of the stuff that we've been seeing over the past decade. I think now we're starting to understand that the nervous system plays a really big role in how much range of motion you have and how much pain you're feeling, how safe your body feels, how quickly it moves, how it organizes itself. So I am seeing in for 2025 is the use of eye movement, skin sensation, grounding, anchoring techniques into the ground, breath patterns. We're seeing this start to get utilized in a really productive manner. I love that type of stuff, and a lot of my programs utilize a nervous system first approach. So before we give the go ahead to doing something really mechanical, whether that's like positionally mechanical or like some sort of treatment that is really physically aggressive, let's just see what we can open up by giving your nervous system the right feedback, right? Why not? Why not start with something that is very easy to recover from, ultimately is going to give us immediate feedback and can give us really, really incredible results without this kind of recovery blip. So if we think about doing something really aggressive in terms of like mechanical stimulus, so like a shock wave or like a heavy, long positional hold for a mobility exercise, we have ultimately damaged the tissue. We've damaged the tissue. It's what we've done. And so the hope is with this signal of damage, we're going to heal again. When you are targeting the right tissue, boom, money, love it. When you're not and you're chasing around pain, suddenly we've ultimately created a need for recovery where potentially we didn't need to have it. So we want to be really considerate when we are dosing in some sort of damage to the system, that it's purposeful and it's actually where the problem is. So in for 2025 is taking a nervous system first approach when we're recovering from injury or we're trying to get a position or change a movement pattern. Use the brain, use the skin, use the perception systems, eyes, inner ear, to change how the body is perceiving those inputs first, and then you will have a clear target for a mechanical intervention. Get clear on your targets before you get aggressive. That is in for 2025. Out for 2025. And again, it kind of wraps into this thought that we're weaving through is all of the self-massage, so many roles and lacrosse balls and massagers and all of this stuff that has become commodity. I think that if we kind of wrap in some of the things I've talked about already, if we are dosing our training volumes appropriately, you should not feel like you are going to die if you do not foam roller. We should not have such a crazy recovery need if we're effectively dosing in exercise and we're getting appropriate sleep and we're getting appropriate nutrition. Again, if we're seeing this full picture of what's going on, I think the self-massage, I think all those little tools that we have to provide treatment can be productive. But if we're leaning on those because we haven't effectively dosed in exercise and given our bodies the building blocks for recovery, what are we really doing? What are we really doing? So yes, I want you to exercise. Yes, it's okay to feel sore. Yes, it's okay to foam roll. But if you have to foam roll to exist, we want to start to question your training volumes and how you are actually loading your body, because potentially it's not even effective if you're finding that you have so much work to do in the self-recovery side of things. We should be dosing what is called the minimum viable dose when we are exercising, when we are putting stress in our system. The hope with fitness or rehab or whatever is that we have dosed in a stimulus to your cells that it has to adapt to. There is the perfect amount, and that perfect amount is the minimum viable dose, meaning we just need to signal the cells enough to allow them to recover. If we are repeatedly exceeding that, and we're not respecting the new series and decades of our lives, every single decade you're going to recover differently. You have to respect where you are and where your recovery windows are. If we're not doing that, it's going to feel like you need to roll and Google all of this recovery, like ice baths, cold baths, please God save me. Those types of things, because you're just not either dosing in exercise or respecting your recovery needs. So self-massage, it can stick around, but I wanted to just turn the volume down. Let's just turn the volume down on how self-massage is going to save you, because it ultimately is a really, really small piece of the big picture. And if you're using it as a little crutch to get out of pain, there's better strategies. So take the crutch out and just make a better treatment plan. Yes, you can do it for blood flow. You can do it to make your nervous system calm down. But if we're trying to fix an injury with rolling, it's not going to happen. I got one more in. And I think that it's broad-based across a lot of different business worlds, nutrition, whatever, is mindset and psychology. I'm going to say that is in for 2025 when it comes to my world, which is like fitness and injury recovery. I have actually shifted so that a lot of the programs that I deliver people start with, let's just get our perspective clear on what we're trying to do here. So I think that researching that side of things, which I understand is important and I understand that it's a little challenging sometimes to research a mindset thing. But I've actually shifted to starting a lot of my treatment plans, which is getting really clear on expectations and that perception of what's going on and what this process looks like. In my past brain, before I had an education and experience working as a practitioner when I was just a client, I was always kind of under the expectation that I would either be able to Google my way free and find an exercise that solved my problem, or I would find a person within a visit or two to solve my problem. I think ultimately that mindset was harmful because it was never going to work out that way. So I think getting really clear on what this process looks like. It's okay to have little flare-ups. It's okay to have days where you're not feeling so good. The good days are good too, but it doesn't mean we've adapted that tissue yet. I think just getting really clear on reflecting on mindset as you take on a bigger recovery project or injury rehab or fitness project is super helpful to make sure that you're just in check as you go through the usual bumps on the road. Getting really clear on what the process looks like, getting really clear on your role within that process going well, is very important. So I'm going to say in for the mindset stuff, the psychology side of things when it comes to fitness and wellness in 2025. I've got one more out, but I think it kind of falls into the category of the last one too. I think maybe I'm on my own because I know some people really love them, but I think 2025 is going to be the downfall of the hot cold business space. And again, don't come at me if you are running one of these businesses. I hope for your prosperity in the future. I just think that it feels trendy. It feels trendy to me. I think that maybe I'm going to be proven wrong. Hot tubs and steam rooms, all that stuff has always existed. I just think that as like a standalone thing, I don't know if it's worth it personally. Very small scale changes within your health that can come from that. If you love it, have a sauna or whatever in your house. I just think that the wave of that trend is going to be coming down in 2025. That's my prediction. Subjective. Again, if you love them, amazing. Keep it up. Keep those businesses rolling. We'll talk next year and we'll see how it goes. So that is a wrap. I looked at my little list. That's all I've got for ins and outs of 2025. I also got you guys to send me a couple things if you had questions about little trends. So I'll recap the episode by just a couple trends that I see with people coming through and questions. One is infrared therapy. Yes, it's good. It accelerates the mitochondria. It accelerates, the process a cell was going to be carrying out. But you need to signal that cell. So that's what I would say with red light therapy is, yes, it's fine. However, you need to signal your nervous system and ensure that it has the nutritional building blocks to actually do anything productive with that accelerated mitochondrial function. That is a wrap for ins and outs of 2025. Welcome back to the Doc WISHLOFF Podcast. I've got lots of fun, exciting topics coming up for this season. So I will see you next week. Once again.